No, I don't know exactly where to start, but I guess I jump into the whole failure part. And I had a keynote last week regarding AI and how China is embracing AI now, maybe in a more what can I say, open way compared to the US, for instance. And if you just look at the consumed tokens globally, or US versus China, China is using 4 times as many tokens from these AI tools that are out there. And so like I probably talked to you about, also talking about Shenzhen speed, talking about China speed. I think that the Chinese coming into the failure part, I do think that they are embracing the concept of failing in a completely different way. Um, I do think that they are sort of understanding, in order to be the first mover, in order to move as fast as they do, they don't search for perfection in the same way that we are used to search for perfection in the West. And specifically, I'm from Sweden, and we are obsessed with perfection. We're obsessed with the details. So it's sort of like the opposite, the contrast. Um, so I think, yeah, the concept of failure here, I think it's just different. We see it as maybe just a bump on the road, and here a strategy is something more practical than theoretical. In the West, as you know, in Germany, Sweden, and a lot of Western European countries, we theorize a lot. Before we take action, we want to plan, we want to do surveys, we want to have consensus, and all of these things. Compared to China, there is a plan, and then there's action. So, and then there's a lot of things happening, and based upon the outcome of those actions, then we evaluate those things, and from there on we take another set of actions. So it's a lot less of theorizing and more of actions. And again, coming back to what you mentioned about failure, I think this just um, grows like a culture where failure is just something that is completely necessary of growth. And I remember, Nikki, we had this conversation, right, when regarding myself also, and how I look at failure, and how I try to communicate the fact that we also need to be better at communicating failures, communicating things that don't go as expected. And in a world, like you said, that uh, we try to emphasize the positive things, we try to obviously communicate the successes that we have achieved. Those are the fun parts, right? And those obviously you want to communicate, but not as many people are keen on talking about all those failures and all those less nicer things, and talk about those things. And of course, that puts a lot of pressure on people, and gives false understanding of how to reach, I think, success. Um, and as you know, I had a speech, a TEDx speech last year about this. I'm a tennis guy myself, and I used the analogy of tennis as analogy of real life, and how tennis players, or maybe even the goats like Federer and Nadal and Djokovic, how they have only won maybe a few, I think it's 2-3% more balls compared in general, in a tennis match. So meaning that they win around 52-53% of all the tennis balls that they actually play. But if you look at the matches that they have actually won, it goes up to around 80%. So actually, during a tennis match, they are almost losing half of the tennis points that they're playing. And I think this is such a great analogy to life. And I think we will lose almost like half of the things that we try, but that doesn't make us a loser. We're only a few percent away to becoming a goat. But it's very easy to focus on that 48% of the times that you're losing. You're feeling worthless, you're feeling bad, but actually you're so close to actually just becoming the complete opposite. And so that's I think it's a very interesting and good lesson that you can bring from tennis. And another thing I always talk about coming back to the tennis is this 25-second rule that you have in tennis. You have these 25 seconds to reset between each point. And so I think that this is also something very interesting. Okay, in life, maybe you don't have to reset in 25 seconds, but I do think we dwell on our losses way too long. So I think we should sort of be better at resetting and focus on the next rally as fast as possible, and don't give yourself too much joy actually in the points that you win. In the same time, or in the same way, don't beat yourself up too hard either for those rallies that you're actually losing. So yeah, that's the thing, sort of, that I try to follow at least as much as possible. And I think being here in China is sort of helping you with this, since failure is sort of incorporated in our way of doing business.